Imagine a world where the weather isn't just something you talk about, it's something you control. Not with satellites and supercomputers, but with a forgotten device hidden in plain sight. In 1967, one ordinary man stumbled upon technology that should not exist, a device capable of changing the very air around us. How did it work? Where did it come from? And why has its existence been erased from history? Our story begins in the unassuming suburbs of Detroit, Michigan, in the summer of 1967. David Miller was, by all accounts, an ordinary man, a soft-spoken mechanical engineer by trade, but his true passion lay in the intricate world of amateur radio. His basement, a labyrinth of wires, resistors, and glowing vacuum tubes, was his sanctuary. For years, he'd spent countless nights scanning the airwaves, chasing faint signals from distant lands, a hobby that, unknown to him, would soon lead him down a path far stranger than any shortwave broadcast. One stifling July evening, as the humid air pressed down on the city, Miller was tinkering with a newly acquired antique receiver. He was hoping to pick up some transatlantic chatter, perhaps a freighter captain charting a foggy course across the Atlantic. Instead, his dials landed on something anomalous, a faint rhythmic pulse, unlike any natural phenomenon or man-made transmission he'd ever encountered. It wasn't Morse code, nor was it a voice. It was a complex, almost hypnotic hum, imbued with a mathematical precision that suggested design, not random interference. Curiosity, the driving force of all great discoveries, took hold. Miller spent weeks meticulously analyzing the signal, charting its frequency shifts, its peculiar harmonic structure. He used his engineering prowess, his deep understanding of electromagnetic principles, to try and decipher its origin, its purpose. What he found wasn't a message but a blueprint. Embedded within the signal's modulation was a series of schematics, a design for a device that defied conventional understanding. It was a machine that seemed to operate on principles unknown to contemporary science, utilizing exotic materials and an arrangement of coils that hinted at something far beyond simple communication. Driven by an insatiable intellectual hunger, Miller began to gather the components. Oddly enough, many of them were readily available: copper wire, vacuum tubes, capacitors, but some required ingenuity and improvisation. He painstakingly pieced together this enigmatic machine, his basement workshop transforming into a clandestine laboratory. The finished device was a visual enigma, a squat metallic box, adorned with an intricate array of coiled copper tubing, a series of antique-looking glass vacuum tubes that hummed with an inner light, and a single large obsidian-like crystal mounted prominently on top. There were no visible dials or switches, only a single glowing indicator light that pulsated in rhythm with the mysterious signal. When Miller first powered it on, nothing dramatic happened. Just a low, almost imperceptible thrum, a subtle vibration that coursed through the concrete floor of his basement. He waited, his heart pounding, for a spark, a shock, anything. Days turned into a week. Disappointment began to set in. He was about to dismantle the contraption when the first anomaly occurred. It was a Tuesday, a perfectly clear, hot summer day, typical for Michigan in August. Then, without warning, a heavy, localized fog rolled in, blanketing his street in a thick, eerie shroud. It dissipated as quickly as it appeared, leaving his neighbors bewildered. Miller noticed the glowing indicator on his device had pulsed erratically during the event. He began to experiment, making subtle adjustments to the internal frequency of the device, guided by intuition and the lingering echoes of the mysterious signal. The phenomenon escalated. A week later, a sudden torrential downpour drenched only his property, leaving the adjacent yards completely dry. Then came the hail, golf ball-sized stones plummeting from a clear sky, impacting only his roof and driveway. His neighbors, initially amused, grew wary. Whispers started circulating about Miller's weird weather. He was creating localized weather anomalies, small scale, but undeniable. The strange occurrences drew attention, not just from curious onlookers, but from shadows lurking in the periphery. One morning, Miller found his workshop door ajar, though he distinctly remembered locking it. Nothing was taken, but the device had been subtly tampered with. A small, almost invisible scorch mark marred the casing. A few days later, a black sedan with tinted windows began appearing on his street, always parked at a discreet distance. Its occupants never left the vehicle, but Miller felt their eyes on him. The tension was palpable. He knew he was being watched, monitored. His isolated basement had become a focal point of intense, covert scrutiny. He worked feverishly, trying to understand the full scope of his discovery, racing against an unseen clock, knowing that time was running out. The climax unfolded on a brutally hot September afternoon. Miller, emboldened by his perceived mastery over the device, and perhaps driven by a desperate need to understand its limits before others intervened, decided to push it further. He made a series of critical adjustments, guided by a sudden, almost visionary flash of insight derived from the peculiar signal's internal structure. The hum of the machine intensified, growing into a deep, vibrating tremor that rattled the glassware on his shelves. The obsidian crystal on top began to pulse with an internal, violet light. Outside, the clear sky rapidly darkened. A massive, swirling vortex of clouds, unlike anything seen in a Michigan summer, began to form directly over Miller's house. The air crackled with untold energy. Within minutes, the temperature plummeted, an unnatural chill replacing the oppressive heat. Then came the snow. Not a gentle flurry, but a blizzard of shocking intensity, an impossible torrent of white descending upon Miller's single suburban home, while the rest of Detroit basked in late summer sun. The streetlights flickered, then died. His house was enveloped in a sudden, blinding whiteout. David Miller, caught within the eye of his self-made storm, saw the glowing, pulsing crystal surge with blinding energy, its violet light now a furious, almost solid beam, shooting upwards into the impossible snowstorm. The last thing he remembered was a deafening crack, a surge of pure, raw power, and the scent of ozone thick in the air, followed by an all-encompassing darkness. When the neighbors, bewildered and chilled, ventured out after the localized blizzard mysteriously vanished, what they found was inexplicable. Miller's house stood, structurally intact, but utterly silent. The basement, his workshop, was a wasteland of melted wires and shattered components, a scene of impossible electrical discharge. The machine itself, the squat metallic box with its obsidian crystal, was gone, vanished without a trace, and so was David Miller. The local police investigation was swift, superficial, and ultimately inconclusive. They attributed the bizarre weather to a highly localized freak meteorological phenomenon, and Miller's disappearance to, perhaps, a sudden flight from personal problems. But those who lived on his street, those who saw the black sedan, the impossible snowstorm, they knew something far more profound had occurred. Within days, agents from an unnamed federal agency swept through the area, interviewing neighbors, confiscating any photographic evidence, and subtly, surgically, erasing any trace of the climate-controlling device or the strange man who built it. The incident was compartmentalized, classified, and filed away into the hidden archives of unexplainable phenomena. The memory of the impossible snow lingered like a phantom chill, a whispered secret among those who witnessed it. To this day, the case of David Miller and his impossible weather machine remains an open wound in the fabric of reality. Was he an unsung genius, accidentally tapping into forgotten knowledge? Or was he merely a conduit, deciphering a signal from an unknown source, a design for technology that predates human civilization, or perhaps originates from beyond our world? The device itself, its true purpose, and its ultimate fate are shrouded in mystery. Was it recovered and locked away in a government vault, a weapon too dangerous for public knowledge? Or did it simply cease to exist, an echo of forgotten power returned to the ether? David Miller's disappearance leaves us with a stark reminder. There are forces at play, technologies that defy our understanding, patiently waiting to be unearthed. And sometimes when humanity gets too close to touching that forbidden knowledge, unknown entities step in, ensuring our ignorance, protecting us, or perhaps protecting themselves, from the power that shouldn't exist. If you want more mysteries like this, the next video explores the true story behind the bizarre disappearances of an entire town in rural Alaska and the chilling note they left behind.